because if Indiana can beat Michigan State, then that Michigan game and that Ohio State game become even bigger, and their chances of making the college football playoff go up exponentially. So when you look at Michigan State this season, we have to look at how they have played. Their season has been very interesting so far because they've had a lot of conflicting results. They start out the season with a win over Florida Atlantic 16-10. That's not a great win, but it was week one. That's passable, right? Well, they got the win. They didn't play all that good, but they got the win. Then they play Maryland, and they beat them 27-24 on the road. I mean, hey, a road win is a road win in the Big Ten. I'm not gonna fault that at all. A road win is a road win, but still, definitely, Maryland not having a great year, so kind of can chalk that up to okay, decent win, but not great. Beat Prairie View, that's expected. At Boston College, they lost by 4. Now, when they lost this game originally, I'm like, all right, BC's playing very well. BC's having a good year. Since then, BC's kind of fallen apart a little bit. They're not bad. Boston College is not bad. And Bill O'Brien's doing good. He's doing good work over there in Chestnut Hill. But they're not great, man. They're not great. So definitely with Boston College, this is kind of a game that shows you that Michigan State's mid. They're a mid team. And BC's mid. Both teams are just average. That's why Michigan State's 4-4. I mean, that's the epitome of mediocrity. It's average. So not a great loss right there, but not the worst. Was a tough road environment. Get blown out against Ohio State. Get blown out against Oregon. I mean, it's to be expected. Most teams are going to get blown out versus those two. They beat Iowa. That's the game where I'm like, Michigan State is turning a little bit of a corner because Iowa with Ferentz is the epitome of consistency. Literally, the guy goes 8-4 every year, and most of the time beats teams like Michigan State, especially recent Michigan State, not D'Antonio Michigan State, but now Michigan State, the way that they've been playing. Iowa would normally win. And it wasn't home. It wasn't home, and that's what I'm saying. Indiana's playing at Michigan State. Not an easy environment in East Lansing. It's not as tough as the Big House or the Shoe, but it's not easy. Not an easy environment up in East Lansing. So Iowa fell apart and lost that game. Tough loss for Ferentz and the Hawkeyes. And that was a good win for Michigan State. Played pretty well in this game. And I think this game does show that Jonathan Smith has them heading in the right direction. And so much so that I picked Michigan State to be Michigan. I'm like, well, with Michigan's horrible offense, Michigan State's going to go into the Big House and get the win. They didn't. So all of these results to me just signal an average team, an average program. And that's why with Indiana being way above average, are they an elite team? No, they don't have the talent to be an elite team, but they have a great coach, great coordinators, and enough really hardworking players that want to win, want to succeed, and have success in this program, and maybe even have a pro future. Indiana's better than average. They are a really good team. And Michigan State is an average team. But average teams can beat really good teams on a good day. And especially at home. So Indiana's got to watch out for that. Like I said, Michigan State is one of those environments that it's not ever talked about as one of the best. But it's not nowhere near the bottom in college football. It is a very solid environment. The Spartans do love their football. They're kind of like one of those programs where they are supportive of both. They support basketball with Izzo, and they support football, especially the D'Antonio era. And Jonathan Smith trying to bring back the D'Antonio era. Very, very solid program. It's basically been, everyone's known this, like when you had the Big Ten East and the Big Ten West, it was Ohio State, followed by Michigan, Penn State, and then Michigan State was that fourth team in the East that always beat up on Indiana, Maryland, and Rutgers until Michigan State started getting pretty bad. But that's the potential that Michigan State has as a program. We saw it the 1 year with Mel Tucker, with basically it was all Kenneth Walker. It wasn't Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne's not very good. It was all Kenneth Walker, and it was all Jalen, Naylor and Jaden Reed. Both those receivers are lighting it up in the NFL. Kenneth Walker's a beast. He's fantastic. It was not Mel Tucker. It was not Peyton Thorne. But, so for me, Michigan State is a program that has the potential to be better. They seemingly are trending in the right direction. And this would be a massive game for Jonathan Smith in the trajectory of this program. Because if They lose, they drop to 4-5, and then they follow their season up with at Illinois versus Purdue versus Rutgers. If they can beat Indiana, they're most likely making a bowl game. Because you would think they could beat Purdue. Purdue's just really bad this year, and Rutgers isn't all that much better. So 5 wins if you beat IU, beat Purdue 6, Rutgers 7, Illinois on the road. That's very tough. But hey, even Purdue, when they made a QB change, made that game very interesting. So Michigan State, this is a big game, a big, like landing point right here to determine, like, is this a team that's going to be 7-5 or maybe 5-7, 6-6? So they're going to do everything they can to win. Now, looking at their team, like I said, it all relies on the backs of Aiden Childs and his turnover, proneness, because he's very up and down. His completion percentage is 61%. It's not great compared to some really good quarterbacks, but it's not awful. I feel like with modern-day quarterbacks, people are expecting them to complete 70% of their passes, or if not, they're horrible. I mean, 61% is not bad. 1,600 yards. 7 touchdowns, though, non-picks. That's his issue, and that's what Indiana's got to capitalize on. Will Rogers for Washington came into the Indiana game doing very well, not turning it over much. 2 picks, both pawns, but 2 picks against Indiana. So if Indiana can force Aiden Childs into mistakes, that would be huge for Indiana. Now, Tommy Schuster's come in and done a little bit for Michigan State, but Aiden Childs is the guy. He's the main guy. And I think Jonathan Smith really likes him. That's why he recruited him to Oregon State and then brought him over to Michigan State when he took the job. But he's very turnover prone. I'll get into the running backs. Nate Carter, K'Ron Lynch-Adams, 2 pretty solid backs on the season, 2 touchdowns and 3 touchdowns. They don't have a lot of rushing touchdowns on the year, but when you look at their rushing average, 5 yards a carry, 4.8 yards a carry, not a bad running game. And obviously, Childs can run too. Childs has 3 rushing touchdowns of his own, so he's got 10 total touchdowns and 9 picks. So they have a pretty decent run game. Not as good as Indiana's, but a pretty decent run game. Obviously, the receivers, they got a couple decent guys, but nobody really jumps off the page. They don't have a stud at wide receiver. They do have a good kicker. That's another thing. Indiana's had the benefit recently against Nebraska and Washington, 2 teams that have really struggled at field goal kicking this year. Michigan State doesn't have that problem. Jonathan Kim, the only thing he's done wrong is he's missed an extra point, but he's 16 of 18 on the year with field goals, and he can kick long field goals. He can kick 50-yarders. So Indiana's got to keep Michigan State out of field goal range. This guy's going to hit him. Very good field goal kicker. And their defense, it's not bad. I mean, when you go back and look at their schedule, I mean, they've had a lot of games where they've only given up 25, 24, 20. I mean, their defense, it's not the worst. It probably, if I had to guess, because, I mean, I haven't really looked at it, but I do think they rank in the middle in the Big Ten on defense. They're not an elite defense, not a bad defense. They're a pretty good defense. So Indiana's not going to just be able to, have an average day on offense like with Taven Jackson and get by. This is a pretty decent defense overall. I will say that it definitely helps that Indiana's offensive line is a whole lot better, because in the past, they got Mac trucked by even bad defenses, how bad their O-line was. They can actually stop teams now, because Washington had a pretty good D-line. Indiana protected Taven Jackson. So definitely key there for Indiana to be able to keep, whether it's Rourke or Jackson, upright with, some of these better defenses. They are doing it.